Hello and welcome to this week's episode of SBC Podcast. We have with us today retired Colonel Russ Barnes, MBA, PhD, and a very dynamic and accomplished business strategist, consultant, speaker, coach, among other accomplishments. Today we'll discuss some aspects of business efficiency and optimization, and then anything that has to do with how you can get the best out of your business strategy, your planning, and such things. So with that, thank you and welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what you've been working on and then what Systro is about and what the mission is and what you're working towards?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most important things I think about anybody going into business is to have an objective and to have passion about achieving that objective. So I'll take just a very brief moment and tell you how I got where I am, and then we can go in a little bit beyond that.
Yeah.
But I'm retired, 27 years active duty.
Mm-hmm.
When I left the service, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I knew it would be a challenge.
Right.
Along the way, I realized that people were actually doing good business and determined to do good business, but
Right.
they weren't becoming profitable. And as I experienced that same thing, I had a question, why?
Right.
And then the next question was, okay, then how do we solve that?
Right.
And that's what led to the creation of Systro, which is Systems, Strategies, and Organization.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Right. Because I think that those are three of the basic keys that people need to focus on if they're going to become profitable.
Right. Yeah. And then the statistics are scary when you're talking about business failure and who makes it and who doesn't.
Exactly.
Right. So what are some of the things you're finding that make a difference?
The biggest difference is experience, because as I looked at the Small Business Administration statistic, and it says 50% of businesses fail within the first 5 years, and some statistics have that number even higher.
Right.
Some say 70% in the first year. So it depends upon your source. But when I looked at that statistic, I said, well, if 50% are failing, that means 50% are succeeding.
Right.
And the next question that came to mind is then, what is causing or enabling those 50% that succeed to succeed?
Right.
And I wondered, what would the Small Business Administration statistic look like if they were talking about people who had tried the second or third time in their business? And as I began to dig into that more, I found that to be true, that the people who succeeded had experience either from themselves or they had somebody on their team who had experience and was able to anticipate some of the obstacles that they would face during the journey.
Right. And then an experience is not an easy thing to obtain, and it's costly.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yes, it is. And so then, of course, now I went back and said, okay, then if experience is one of the things that someone has to have enabled to be successful and profitable, then how do they get that experience? How can I create something for a first-time business owner that will improve their chances of becoming profitable and successful? And then that's when I begin to look at basic business fundamentals. What are they? What is it that the successful people know that the experienced and successful people know that the first-time business owner doesn't know?
Right.
And I started to look into that aspect of things. And that really is the essence now of what Systro provides for small business owners.
Right. So my understanding is with Systro, you're delivering this in quite a few different ways. And
Yes.
you mentioned you're doing this through a podcast, you're doing it through a workshop, and there is also a book that
Yes.
you got out there that's and we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Obviously, we'll share all of that information.
Yes.
What are some things that small business owners that they can do? I don't want to call them low-hanging fruit, but maybe
Right.
places where they can start
Right.
that maybe don't require an extended level or number of extensive resources and such. Just like some of the places where they can start,
Right.
that could probably, some of the levers maybe they can push or they can pull, they can...
Right. It all starts with the mindset. And I'm sure you knew that, you've known this in terms of building your companies.
Right.
It starts with your mindset.
Right.
And what is your approach? It starts with the problem. And one of the things that I would consider a low-hanging fruit is many business owners, when they start, they're trying to solve their problem. You know, my problem is I don't have money. My problem is I don't want to go work for someone else. My problem is that I put together this great product and no one seems to understand it. And you spend a lot of time trying to solve your problem when at the end of the day, it's the customer who pays your bills.
Right.
So the low-hanging fruit is to take the focus away from your problems in terms of being in business and put the emphasis on who am I trying to help?
Right. Yeah. It's like fall in love with your client or with your customer, not with your business.
Not with your product.
Right,
exactly.
Right, yeah.
You know, your product will change based upon what your customers want.
Right.
They want you to solve their pain problem. And if you do that effectively, then your chances of becoming profitable with your company increase. But the other really good side of this is you may find out that you're not really solving anyone's pain problem with your product, and so you can get out before you've wasted a lot of money and wasted a lot of time.
Right.
And then you can start to look around. What really happens in many cases, though, is you find an adjustment. You say, this is the problem that I think I can solve. You start helping people with that solution, and then they'll tell you, well, that's not really it. This is what I really need.
Right.
So now you only have to make a slight adjustment, and all of a sudden you're taking off.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing a lot about, you remind me of that concept called the MVP, or the minimum viable product, where, a lot of people make that mistake and they fall in love with this idea. They go spend all their energy, resources, money, and everything on it, only to find that they're totally off the mark. So yeah, that's totally a valid point, which is like, you tweak and you adjust based on what the customer or what the client actually want.
Right.
And so what is the sweet spot for who you're working with as far as types of businesses or sizes or?
I'm passionate about, I'm obsessed about the small business, the micro business owner, 9 employees or less, generating $50,000 in annual revenue or less, because that is a neglected community. They can't really afford to pay the coaches and the consultants fees that they would normally have to pay in order to get the type of advice they need to make decisions. And they struggle. But I love that community because they're so determined, because they're so committed.
Right.
In many cases, they put their lives on the line. So this business is not a hobby. So the sweet spot for me is the micro business owner who's been in business, 2 years. They have a business model.
Right.
So they already know how to create that first revenue stream. They just haven't really figured out how to accelerate their growth in that path.
So these are people like not necessarily doing lifestyle businesses, but they're also growth-minded. And are you finding they're mostly like one-man kind of types of businesses, or people with teams? Or
many times they are, and I don't really distinguish so much between lifestyle and whether or not they want to have a growth company. I do talk about exit strategy right up front, and I think business owners should know what their exit strategy is going to be.
Right.
And in reality, there are only 2. There are 3. I do a presentation called Sell, Scale, or Fail.
Okay.
So there are 3 exit strategies, but no one wants to talk about the failure option.
Right, yeah.
So the 2 viable ones are sell. You can start out and say, I want to build this company and I want to sell it in 3 to 7 years. And then that will enable you to make decisions about where do you take money from?
Right.
How much money do you take? How much of your company do you give away? And well, not give away, but how much do you provide to people who exchange for investment money? And that drives sort of a rapid growth path and a very rapid trajectory. On the other hand, if you're looking at a scale strategy and you're building a legacy company and you want it to provide for your family, maybe you have some children who you want to take over that company, then you would follow a very different strategy of organic growth. So you would grow through sales. It will take you a lot longer. It will be slower, but you won't give portions of your company away.
Right.
You will maintain control over what you have. So that's kind of how you will go.
Like sometimes it's for some people it makes sense.
Right.
Sometimes it's better to own like half of something that's successful than everything or whatever 100% of something that fails.
Right.
And because that's always one of the big questions.
Right.
Because it's hard for all of us. Like when you build a business to kind of the whole idea or thought of having to give some of that equity away.
Yes.
But I think it all boils down to what you get in exchange.
Right.
Because if it's going to catapult you or 10 times or 10x whatever you're doing, then obviously, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, and I do talk to the small business. When I talk about this, I say, just because you start out with a sales strategy doesn't mean you can't change. If your business grows rapidly and you actually love what you do and you find some opportunities to continue, you don't have to sell. And the same thing, if you start with a scale strategy and someone wants to offer you crazy money,
right.
You might want to take it.
Right. Yeah. Because if you don't know your goals, you don't know if you've gotten there or if you're falling short or so. Obviously, I totally agree. It's like, in GPS, you have to put in the destination.
Yes.
So that's the way it works, right?
It all starts. That's where it all starts. And that's why I talk about an exit strategy in the beginning, because now you have an addition to your objective and you can make decisions. Exactly. It all comes down to the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And how do you think about those decisions?
Yeah. So you were talking about with this process for strategy that you've come up with.
Yes.
I remember you showing me like a little bit of somewhat of a matrix or a thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. As I looked at big companies, large companies, and I looked at what type of help and assistance they were receiving, they had these models, and so models were created to help the large corporations make decisions.
Right.
And when I took those models and I started to look at the small business owner, I said, well, they don't apply. They will not be able to, help the business owner because they don't have the same challenges as a large company. Sure. So I took one that I thought was really good. It's called a STAR model, and I modified it for the small business owner. And I tested that model against successful business owners, successful companies.
Right.
And the way it frames out is, when we first started talking, the customer is the most important person.
Right.
You need to focus in on the customer's needs. The second thing they told me was communication. Right. That is the second most important thing you have to master as a small business owner, as a business owner in general. It's communication, both internal to your organization and external to the people who you are selling to.
Right.
And then there's leadership and there's management. Management is very important. It's as important or more important than leadership. It's not an either or, it's a both. And then culture. Why do people want to come to work in your company? Right. Do you share the same values? And culture will enable you to turn your employees into ambassadors.
Right.
So they go out and tell people great things about your company. I love working there.
Right.
This is how they take care of people. This is how they take care of me. And when you have the right culture in your company, then your employees become very good salespeople for you, even without trying.
Right. Yeah. No. Great points. Because when communication cuts across,
yes.
If you're not a good communicator, it's gonna come across. Because at any point, there's conversations to be had. And at the heart of the conversations is good communication skills.
Right.
And it's the ability to be tactful. It's the ability to be thoughtful. Be able to have even tough conversations or fierce ones without without wreaking havoc in people's lives.
Yes.
And then obviously that cuts across like the inner workings of the organization, management, leadership, and such.
Exactly.
And obviously culture. That's at the heart of retention and also attraction of the good talent, which is just creates this circle.
That is so key. That is so key.
They attract more good employees, and then they take good care of the clients, and then and so on and so forth. So those are all great points.
Yes.
So, Russ, are there things that maybe that haven't come up in the conversation yet that maybe you think are relevant to what we're talking about, and then that maybe the audience should know or should think about or take into consideration as it comes to like strategy, as it comes to just being better planners and being mindful of the issues maybe they need to kind of so maybe some possible blind spots that you may be seeing as you work with these different people that keep coming up, where people just keeps to gets people all the time or something like that, and things like that.
Yes, I'm going to start here. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I love Star Trek, and I love the follow-on like Deep Space Nine. Okay. And there was an episode of Deep Space Nine. I think it was the first episode, and they talked about our linear existence, and Commander Cisco was trying to explain to these aliens what it meant to be linear. And that is so key for the business owners to understand, and especially entrepreneurs, because we're so driven, and we want everything to happen now, and we're impatient. But we have to find a way to suspend that a little bit, because things have to happen in a sequence. And if you are not familiar with the sort of sequence that has to happen, then you do things out of sequence and you get yourself in trouble. So it's really key to understand that you have to have patience and you have to follow a progression. And when you start thinking through some of the things that I've already talked about, it will help you with that mindset. It will help you with that mentality to say, okay, I know that what I'm doing right now today is going to lead me to my outcome. And so I'm going to be patient, even though I want to do 10 other things and 15 other things. And I think all those things are important. This is the one that needs to be done right now, today. You know, so you kind of set up a milestone, or you set up
systematic approach,
a system,
and then focus and then prioritize. And
that is the key word, is focus. You need to focus your energies and get certain things accomplished. And so I think that's important to understand. Business is so complex and it's so complicated and there's so many different things. So by having a model such as the one we've described, you can wake up in the morning and say, I really want to accomplish sales today. I really want to get some more customers today. So you can start thinking about customers and you realize, well, this is at the top of my model. So now I know that if I spend 95% of my day thinking about my customer, and Warren Buffett actually says that this is what you should do, then I'm doing the right thing.
Which is unnatural, by the way, because
it's
unnatural.
Like
it's we hear it, you can say it and whatever, but if you actually stop and really think about what it means and what it entails, it's not easy, because I mean, it's like we're by nature. I mean, it's like you have to fight that tendency to just think about what do I want, what's in it for me.
You're fighting your survival instinct. Your survival instinct says, I need to eat. And your survival instinct says, in order for me to eat, I need that person to buy from me. Instead of, okay.
It reframes it.
Yes, you have to reframe it, and you have to change your perspective, and then your success will increase. And what I talk about is accelerating your success. So strategy for me is simply, how do you get from where you are to where you want to be? Once you've identified where you want to be, then you can sort of walk it back and say, well, these are the resources I have available, and you can figure out how to apply those resources to make that journey. You know, kind of, if you want to make a trip from Florida to New York, you're going to say, I can fly, I can drive my car, I can go by way of Atlanta. There's certain other things that I can do, and you choose the one that is most effective for you. And so you've kind of mapped that out, and there'll be detours along the way. Maybe you run out of gas, things are going to happen, but you make the adjustment because you know where you want to end up.
Back on track.
You can always get back on track, and you can always accelerate it. If let's say you need to go to New York, and it's just for a vacation, and you just want to have a good time, you may get in your car and go, I'm going to drive. I have all day. I don't have anything holding me back. And then somebody calls from New York and says, oh, something happened, and we need you to be here. Well, then maybe you might pull into an airport, put your car in long-term parking and jump on an airplane and go. So you're accelerating your path.
Yeah, you have those checkpoints where you say, okay, am I in the right direction? Is this the best way to do it? In light of new information, maybe should I, update, change course? And I think it also takes you out of the reactive mode, and then more in the proactive. Because I mean, if you're not. If you don't know where you're going in a road, I think the saying was like, "We'll get you there" or something, or if you're just get in the water like a boat, that's rudderless. You're just going to float. And I think the urgent too sometimes can hijack your plans, can hijack your days, and if you're not thoughtful about what you want to do and what is the priority, then you end up at the mercy of all these different priorities that are not necessarily yours.
Exactly. Distractions come in. Other people come in and they go, wow, you're doing such a great job with your business. I love what you're doing. Would you help me out with this? Or would you like to, do this other business with me? And now all of these other offers are coming in, and when you get distracted from your course, you dilute your energy and your effort and your resources.
We like shining you up.
Yes, we do.
It's like a little bit of that squirrel.
Yes.
Russ, what has been some of the other experiences as well either as far as like human resources and getting the best out of them, like whether it's like people actually entrepreneurs getting the best out of themselves, or maybe their first employee or a couple of employees. What are some of the things maybe they can do, or some things you may observe that they are not doing that could make a huge difference.
Yeah, it all starts with the value system, and you as the CEO of your company sets that value process. And so you have to be authentic. You really have to be true to yourself. And when you're true to yourself, you attract other people because they say, oh, I see your values. I like your values. They match my values. Now you get the opportunity to hire a better employee for your company. And then it's a better working day for you when you come in and you're authentic all day long and you're being yourself all day long and the people around you like you for you. It just makes it so much better to come to work every day. So the value system is very important in terms of setting that stage, as you move forward, and I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah, no, I agree because I mean it's one of the things you can't really teach people.
Yes.
Because you can teach people many different skills and jobs and things like that. But if they're rotten,
exactly.
There isn't much you can do.
If they're not enthusiastic or motivated, and when I hire people, I look at, are they enthusiastic and motivated about what we're doing to help our customers? If they don't have that, then I can't teach them anything because they don't want to learn. But if they don't know anything at all about the business from a technical standpoint, but they have that motivation and enthusiasm, they will teach themselves. And as you know,
can help them also. They inspire you to kind of help them because you see that they're really trying and they want to get there. So then it's easier to help someone who's trying to help themselves.
It really is. And, it really is. So I love the folks who are enthusiastic about what we do. And then they come in and they bring that energy and motivation to it as well. And they say that the first person you hire is a key person. They can almost make or break your company.
Yes, I agree.
The fifth person you hire is a key hire because now they're kind of in the management stage, so they have to accept that culture and they have to be on board with your value system. And because now they'll be leading people, and so it goes from there.
Yes, that is very true. Because I mean, it's like you can't be in every place, and you can't know every detail of what goes on in your organization.
Exactly.
As either the owner or the CEO, we can't know every detail. We can add value to just about anything, but from all our experiences and things like that, but you have to rely on other.
You bring up a really key point because as the CEO, your role is going to change. In the beginning, you do a little bit of everything and your hands are in every pot. But when you get to, more than about 11 employees, you just don't see everybody every day. Now your role is going to change. When you get to 150 employees, your role is going to change again. Significantly change. When you go from $1 million in annual revenue to $10 million in annual revenue, what got you to $1 million won't get you to $10 million. So you have to be aware of these dynamics and have a plan in place for how you're going to make these adjustments.
No, I totally agree, and I've experienced that. A couple of different points there. It applies to systems, it applies to people as well. Sometimes even the people that maybe work with you up to a certain point. Sometimes it's even us ourselves. If we're not continuing to develop, it's not continuing to kind of challenge ourselves or maybe get coaching or whatever. Whatever needs to be done.
That's a key.
Because we all have blind spots.
We do.
Sometimes it takes someone with other experiences or just someone sometimes just look from the outside to just see those blind spots.
And you hit on another key point there, which is learning. If you're going to be successful, if you're going to grow your business rapidly, you have to be a lifelong learner. And you just have to really get in and understand. And from different aspects, you mentioned coaching, you mentioned, books that you would read, you mentioned seminars, peer groups. There are so many areas you can tap into, get additional knowledge, but learning. One of the things I've seen that stops small businesses and in some cases causes them to fail as well is when you get to a point where you don't know what to do next, you have to figure out how to do that. And in many cases, it's learning. What do I have to learn in order to make the next leap? and you don't know. I don't know what I have to learn. If I knew what I had to learn, I would already have learned it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those, you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And
yes.
You have to open. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be open, and you have to be able to ask for help. And you have to go maybe talk to people who have been there and done that. Or again, like I said, a coach or someone who a consultant. Obviously, they're two different things, but we can't get into that now. But that's probably a topic for another podcast.
Exactly.
There's all these different areas, and obviously, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly. And some of the things you have to learn take a lifetime to learn. Accounting, for example, financial management, your financial documents. It could take a lifetime to learn that. So, are you going to take the time out from building your company to learn that? No, you're not.
And is that what you really want to do? Is that what you want to specialize in?
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's like sometimes you don't have the right tools for a certain particular job. And then what is the best use of your own time?
Exactly.
Where do you have the most impact? Where can you do the most damage in a positive way? That's kind of where you go, and then you let others do what they do best, right?
That's right.
So I think leveraging others is definitely a big plus.
Hugely important.
Trying to kind of grow a business or just continue to run it smoothly and continue to be profitable.
Yes.
Russ, how can people get a hold of you? How can they check out? Like, I know there is the book, there is and anything we share, we're eventually going to put in the footnotes of the show as well, so people don't have to kind of worry about spelling it or things like that.
Right. So my program is called the Purposefully Profitable Program, and it's all about intention. It's all about control over your ability to generate income through your company. My website is www.systro, Systro.org, Systro.org. And on that website, there's a Purposefully Profitable Program tab. And if you go to that tab, you'll be able to see the presentations that I do, the books that I have out there, the podcast and access to the podcast. And everything is there for you to access.
Yeah, awesome. And then we'll share some of the social media handles and such. So, Russ, it has been a pleasure to have you on this podcast. Thanks for stopping by. Listeners, this concludes today's episode, and be on the lookout for next episodes, and feel free to listen to any previous episodes on iTunes or from our blog links as well as social media, and reach out with any feedback. Thank you.